Hey y'all, it's my fucking birthday. Literally, we are in studio right now, February 11th. I am turning 24 today, which is kind of wild. I've been having a lot of emotions about it simply because I am 24 and my mom had me when she was 23. So now I just feel like I'm ultra grown because I could really, if I was on the timeline of my mom, like be a mom right now, and I'm really not ready for that. Anyways, for my birthday, the biggest, most special thing about today is that both my sisters are here with me. We are here in the DCP studios, and we're going to be talking about something that I think we're all giggly and excited to talk about, which is the first time we each had sex. I want to throw a disclaimer out there that we are always, when we get together, super brutally honest, and we're going to tell it like it is, tell our stories. And so little content warning that we'll probably be mentioning things that weren't consensual sexual experiences that didn't leave us feeling so great. Also content warning about just awkward first time sex stories and having to tell our mom about it. I think we're just going to kind of get into it. And I think the other thing we'll really be touching on is something that we've been talking a lot about on social media, if you've found us there, which is the fact that virginity is a social construct and has really been constructed by this misogynistic patriarchal world to uphold this idea that women should be quote unquote pure for like the use of man, and judging a woman's worth based off of how much they've quote unquote been used by men. So we don't agree with that, but at the same time, we recognize that we grew up with a lot of societal pressure on planning for the first time we have sex as the when we lose our virginity, right? Welcome Amaya and Issa.
Hi. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just go around first and say the first time you consider, what is your first time you consider? How old were you?
Oh, fuck. I was 17, I think. Yeah, 17. Oh yeah. I lost it around the same time as Miss.
And that was Amaya speaking.
Who did?
And
No. This is actually, I'm a little nervous about this topic. I'm giggly, but I'm a little nervous just because.
Absolutely.
Because there's this whole, just as you said, there's this whole misogynistic aspect of losing your virginity. I mean, even the word losing, you don't lose something.
Major negative connotation.
Such negative connotation. It's like this idea that a man takes something from you when he has sex with you. So for me, looking back on my years, I would consider my first time around 15.
I would consider my first time 16. And I'll start us off on sharing my story, and then we can all go around and maybe share a little snippet. I think the full details for me, as I'm comfortable sharing, is that before my quote unquote first time that I would consider, the first time a penis penetrated my vagina, it was non-consensual and rather violent. And so for me, I think I had a lot of shame around my quote unquote first time, something I would never ever get again, being something that was really negative, right? Because I think growing up with High School Musical and, we never see Vanessa and Troy hooking up that way, but you have it in your mind. We presume, and you kind of have this idea of candles and it's really special. And that was not the first time a penis went inside. It was very much forced and violent and painful. And so when I think about my first time, one of the ways I coped with that shame and I think fear was, oh, that's not my first time. I'm not considering that my first time. And my real first time was with my high school boyfriend, who I dated for many years and who absolutely broke my heart many years later. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the first time we had sex was after watching the Titanic. So
God.
So we watched the Titanic. It was 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then in the credits, as the credits are rolling, I forget what song was playing. It honestly might be instrumental. It honestly might be instrumental. My heart will go on.
With the Minions movie playing in the background, so I actually don't think that's that bad.
Okay, so
Keep going.
Okay, so that was that situation, and I think that I was really nervous the whole time. It was just missionary, just super nervous.
That's sweet.
And I also I think I'm drier, and so it was really chafy. It was very dry, not painful, and it was just awkward. And I remember the morning after, it just felt so weird. I didn't sleep over. I had snuck into that house. it was so weird. And then we had like texted each other and been like, oh, we rushed it. Let's not hook up at all for like a month.
Actually,
and
I remember this. I remember talking to you about this.
Like typically a dry person?
I think I'm drier than you.
Because no, I thought I was just a quote unquote dry person for years.
Oh, me and Issa have talked about
this
so much.
But that was just because I wasn't into it. I wasn't turned on. It was the wrong person.
No, for me,
I didn't want to be there, but like
for me, I actually realized. So I think it's because I have bigger vagina lips. So no, seriously. So like it's not immediately wet.
Being dry does not mean like and wet does not necessarily relate to how much you want.
But for me, it's that. It like you have to puncture the surface and then it's gushy, but you like you have to get into the surface. But I'll say like that was my first time with a dude, and then I honestly didn't have intimacy in that way with a woman until many years later. But yeah, that was my first time. It was just awkward and dry.
I have a question. Do you consider? Well, I don't like saying losing your virginity, but do you consider having like two different loss of virginity experiences with a woman and a man, or are you like, I lost my virginity with this person?
Well, I think that by the time I had hooked up with a woman, I was done thinking virginity is something I like check mark off the box. But I remember the first time I had sex with my high school sweetheart, it was like, oh, yep, I did it. Like I am no longer a virgin. I wasn't really
penis and vagina sex.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Amaya was more, I think, there. But I also think that a lot of the concept of, or the problematicness of the concept of losing your virginity is also because it's so heteronormative, right? Yeah. Like it's considered you quote unquote lose your virginity when a penis goes into the vagina. Yep. And so, but I do think that it was a completely new experience, right? I did feel like this is new experience. It felt like a really big deal and like really healing for me. But yeah, I don't think I ever measured it against like losing my virginity or something. Yeah. What about you, Amaya?
Like when I was deflowered.
Deflowered, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, unfortunately, my first time with penis and vagina sex, it's funny because I actually worked for Planned Parenthood for a lot of high school, and I was skipping school, traveling around the Portland area, teaching sex ed and talking about sex and virginity.
And you always had bags of condoms.
And I constantly, I had a fanny pack, which I still carry on to this day, always filled with like 20, 30 plus condoms, lube, vanilla, cherry flavored, dental dams, glow in the dark condoms, ribbed condoms, like I got you covered. And I did not have penis and vagina sex, if we're being specific, until I was 17. And it was a really negative experience. Yeah, Issa is making some like shocked faces right now. I think people are really shocked too, because even a lot of sex educators, we joke at Planned Parenthood meetings, we were always like the freakiest ones. Because in our heads, we're like, oh, we knew the rules, but like we knew the rules. So, but I was pretty embarrassed a little bit, I think. And so my intention with having sex for the first time when I was 17, which I don't have regrets about, but I think in retrospect, I would have done it differently, was very much about catching up. And I think half of that was societal pressure, and because I definitely felt like I was the only one at my school. Like, this is not true, right? But I was like, felt like the only one at my school or in my friend groups who still had never had sex with anyone. Penetrative sex. And I think that right off the bat, at least for me personally, I defined virginity in many different ways, right? Like, I think oral sex is sex. I think that there's penetrative sex. I think that there's vagina, penis and vagina, right? There's so many different combinations. Never had a three-way still. That's another form of virginity, right? But I kind of I think I was in a really depressed state, and I had someone take advantage of me. And I remember being really embarrassed, and I did not tell anyone for over a week. And I took a shower after, and I didn't talk to this boy, for like throughout school. I would avoid him throughout school. And it was a really negative experience. And I do not count that as my first time. And to this day, I'm saying it on the podcast, but I don't like sharing. I don't even talk about it. I remember like being at graduation. You know who this is. I remember being at my high school graduation, and at the time, my high school sweetheart, who I had a really amazing long-term relationship with, was like at graduation, and the boy who I quote unquote technically lost my virginity to like walks across the stage, and Issa goes like, oh, that's a man, that boy, right? And he had no idea because I'd never told him, and we'd been dating for like 8 months at that point. I'm getting convoluted. Anyway, the story I tell though when people say like, oh, when did you lose your virginity, to me is really comical, but also a little bit sad in some ways, because in my head, I knew that I had this really negative experience that I wanted to rewrite, right? So much of my life, and I think my philosophy towards life, is being able to rewrite my own story and redefine my own story, right? So I texted this really cute 6'4" boy that I had like, I was my first boyfriend in 8th grade. He was my long-term, like, not
middle school bae,
like first boyfriend, like crush on him since I was in 6th grade. Like, we were skipping school together in middle school, and he went to a different school, and we would just text, you know, flirty sometimes. And I randomly Snapchatted him like a photo of my face with just the 3 letters DTF. And he messaged me back and was like, oh, really? And literally he like came over like the next day, and I like didn't sneak him into the house. Like, I was lucky as the middle child to have like complete trust with my mom, right? Like, my mom was just kind of like, oh, Maya's like the good child. I
don't know if it's trust
or like she didn't care.
I think at this point it wasn't that you were very sexual, but it was you had a lot of male friends who were completely platonic, and there was never like, I think Issa and me were obviously always flirty.
Also like working on me at the time.
Yeah.
So I was quite unsupervised throughout my, I very, very much was like always unsupervised. I was coming home at like 10, 11 p.m. anyway.
But you were the presumed innocent, like very innocent one.
I was presumed innocent, and what we'll later get to is like when I was actually really upset because when I finally told my mom that I lost my virginity, she had virtually zero reaction and was like, it seems about right. Like, it was almost like about time.
About time.
And I think, and I was like, Mom, like, what the shit is, like, this is a big deal. And she was like, but you're prepared. Like, you teach sex ed. And so that's where it's like, you know, it's been a while, but anyway, it was such a horrible experience. He had like a skiing accident like the week before, so he like couldn't move, and like he didn't know it was my first time, so he just like was laying on my bed, and I was like, I didn't really know what to do, but I really wanted to like get this over with, right? I like climbed on top of him. I like in Lady Bird, when Lady Bird loses her virginity by climbing on top of Timothy Chalamet, right? And it's like 10 seconds, and then he's like, and then she's like, that's it, and slaps him. Like, when I watched that in the movie theater,
I never watched that.
Okay, I was like, that, oh my God, I feel seen. Because it was over so quickly. And I was like, this is a very appropriate 17-year-old DTF text sexual experience. And I did not tell, and like, but like to me, that was good, you know, because this boy who, if you're out there, like, actually still love you, like, just like really good. No, like, not like actually, but like I have a lot of like appreciation because he never, this like boy that I choose to identify with as losing my first true virginity, like it was always good vibes. Like, it was never super deep, but like ever since we were younger, it was always good vibes.
Yeah.
Great memories.
Okay, so that brings us to
fucking hilarious.
This is literally same time, like same year,
like maybe within a couple months, I feel like.
So I have always been really conflicted about this whole concept of my virginity, just because I technically, and we've already explained what technically means, I've technically lost my virginity to my boyfriend, to my early high school boyfriend. And so I had everyone around me telling me, like, oh, he's your boyfriend. Like, of course you guys are doing that stuff. Of course. But in reality, I was 14. And it's interesting to hear you say that you lost yours feeling like you had to catch up. I was being told, and might I remind you, that like this boy didn't really let me have friends, wouldn't let me see anyone else, consistently told me that like we had to do these things because everyone else was doing them. And since I didn't really have many girlfriends, like close girlfriends at the time, I didn't know that that wasn't true. So at 14, I had all these like, I had this guy telling me that we had to do all of these things because like I had to catch up. I was 14. And so like looking back, it's really angering and it's disgusting because afterwards I just remember feeling completely violated. Like my body has never felt more not mine than after losing my virginity. And then coming back to like the beginning of the episode, like I thought it was gonna be like candles and like, yeah, the Titanic playing in the background, but no, mine was just like completely like, are we doing it now? Like every time we hung out, it was like, is it time? Like, that's something. Okay. Anyways, that happened. So then after that relationship, which lasted about a year after that,
which got progressively worse, by the way.
Progressively worse. I was just in a really bad spot, and mom was an amazing mom who just completely 180, like was all supported, like supported me through my therapy, through my work, through my self-healing. And so I kind of just like had a time frame where I didn't have sex for a while, and I just like reclaimed my virginity. And
that was after the relationship, though.
And that was after the relationship. But technically, so not technically, emotionally, I consider my first time with my childhood best friend and lifetime crush, like moments, like the first time I saw him.
Are you crying?
I actually think she's tearing up right now.
Like the first time I saw him.
When you were 5.
When I was 5.
Yes.
No, and I say this with my whole heart. Like the first time that I saw this boy in like kindergarten.
She's actually tearing up.
Oh, Issa. Oh, she's crying. What the fuck? Oh.
Anyways.
We love you.
We love you.
While you catch your breath, I'll also just put a disclaimer here that this 5-year-old crush was the little brother of my 8th grade boyfriend, who was my first kiss.
Not only that, this is the little brother of my
your best friend,
who is still one of my best friends.
Who we used to have.
Okay,
sorry, too many details.
No. Okay, so I remember I had years
there,
of trying to rebuild my life, like rebuild my friendships, rebuild my groups, and my maybe sophomore year after like some homecoming dance, I remember all of our friends, we were meeting up at this boy's house, and this was a house that we grew up hanging out at, like us three sisters, because you were best friends with
everyone who knows this is going to be like, oh,
we're not dropping names.
We're not dropping names, but
yeah.
I just remember I have like kindergarten, we would like touch pinkies on like while we would draw. Like 2nd grade.
Wait, can we just pause and acknowledge touched pinkies while we draw?
Like, you know, or in the movies when you're like, we would go to movies with friends, and you know, you're just like your elbows nudge a little bit.
Sibling movie night in their basement.
Or under our 2nd grade like reading table, we'd like touch toes a little bit. So this, might I remind you, this was like 15 years of just like flirting,
tension,
crushing on each other. I remember 5th grade after school, it was a ritual that we'd go outside and we'd play Mercy, where you like hold hands and you like try to push each other's hands back.
No, it's not. It's when you try to cause the other pain by.
But it's when you do it until you say mercy. But honestly, like we had so much sexual tension as 12-year-olds that we would literally just be playing mercy for hours. Okay, anyways.
Hours?
Sophomore. Okay, not hours, but sophomore
year.
Go
again.
Sophomore year, I remember I was still kind of rebuilding myself, and we were in our like the movie basement where we grew up. Like we grew up watching movies with these people playing wall ball,
watching Futurama.
I just remember we kind of like looked at each other, and it was like, yeah. Yeah. And so I remember we like went up to his room, and it was like twilight. It was purple. Like the room was purple. The sun was just coming up.
He did get great sunlight in that room.
Oh, and it was his first time, by the way.
And it was his first time. So I was more experienced than him, which helped. And I don't know, we just kind of like guided each other through it, like me emotionally, him physically.
So it was a lot healing.
It was healing for me.
Yeah.
So that's what I consider my first time.
But it did not turn into anything. It was very much like a casual one time.
It was very much like a casual thing. And then
did it ever happen again?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, no. Almost.
Okay.
Almost.
So it was like a one time.
Almost, but then we realized that our friendship was too special. Like we didn't want to risk anything. And I was still.
There's no way that there's not real like love there, just because of how much we close up our families are. Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't. No,
we're
I
all
wouldn't.
so close.
Oh, and his older brother was my last regular casual hookup before my current relationship.
Yeah.
So I would not. I would not like date this boy. I didn't date this boy because like that friendship is just too special to me and to like our family. And but yeah, it was a very like healing event for me.
I think that what's really powerful about what you shared, Issa, is, you know, again, the first time that it was imposed on you, and it wasn't until you had that time of healing, therapy, also reporting your first shitty boyfriend, reporting to the school and authorities. Like, there was a lot of time and work that went into, I think, you doing your healing before you could have that more emotional experience.
Oh, yeah.
But I also think that what you and I have talked a lot about is, once you even have a positive experience, right? Like even with my high school boyfriend, eventually we got to a cadence where we were having, you know, consensual, sweet, darling high school sweetheart sex. At the same time, it wasn't like I was climaxing, you know, but it was like something that felt really fun and good to me and explorative. But I think that at the same time, I feel like you and I talk a lot about this because of the trauma we've been through, and maybe the first ever penetrative experience we had not being so consensual. It was kind of a theme, even going back out and dating, like being able to say no to guys and sexual advances. Like, I definitely have always struggled with that. And to be honest, like, as you both know, it's been a really, really challenging thing even in my current relationship, right? Because if I'm out and I'm at an event or something, or I'm having a one-on-one conversation with a guy, even though I'm with Henry, and I keep reiterating,
it's just getting that like attention for your body. Because growing up, us three were trophy daughters. Like we were trophy daughters. We got dressed up.
And
the
touched.
only time that we really got attention was when we got, you know, dressed up. And
it is extremely frustrating day to day, and I think that the older I get, the more open. I mean, Nadya paved the way for, I think, me and Issa both to start being more open about, you know, being victims of CSA and being survivors. Oh my God, I like don't even think I'm ready to talk about it. But
well, this is a very new thing for you to.
It's so new for me to talk about, and the older I get, and the more self-aware I get, and the more healed I get, the also more angry, frustrated. And sometimes, what's that word when you feel super hopeless, like at a loss, like I get, realizing how much just connects back to our father, our biological father, and the saying no, not even with men, but across the board in career spaces and whatnot, is really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think like daddy issues
are so real.
Yeah. But I also think
you have to tell your partner, like if I start dating or flirting with anyone, it starts getting a little serious. It's so frustrating to people like, fuck, I have to have this conversation where I say like, by the way, like I'm a victim of survivor. I'm a survivor of CSA. And by the way, like I've had really unconsensual experiences in my life.
Well, which is something that I'm actually learning to grow out of. Like when you enter a new relationship, you don't actually have to share that stuff.
Issa does not share that.
I choose not, or I try not to. I have with my current boyfriend, just because we're at a point where I feel comfortable doing that.
And this is your like fourth time dating too with this person.
In terms of like dating a guy, I believe in like, you know, you do your processing, and it's important to have your support system. And if you do have that support system, I don't know, I would choose not to bring my past traumas into a new relationship.
I think it's dependent on the dynamic you have, though, and like depends on your person. And I think that knowing how much I love you two together right now, it makes sense.
But also,
and it's
wait,
age appropriate, I feel.
I also feel like, Issa, you say that, but then you also, there comes a point in those relationships where you're like, oh shit, I'm being triggered and I need to tell them.
That's a big thing.
Being
aware of
I think what Amaya's getting into is Amaya walks into the room and is like, by the way, you know, or that I'm joking, but you know,
don't do that.
But like I'm saying, Issa is more of like delayed until she really has to.
I'm more of like,
until
if
it starts.
To come up,
no, I'm like, let's talk about this and let's get it out of the way. Like I'm processed, but
yeah, I know you'd love to just put it out.
Wait,
we're referring.
I was like, what the fuck is she talking about? Oh, how our mom found out.
Oh, okay, wait. I have to start this off. Okay, because there's a lot of emotion about this. So when Issa first had her penetrative sexual experience, she was not on birth control.
No.
And I don't think you used protection.
No.
I was 14.
You were
I
14.
didn't really
Did not know what,
was
and I was
going on.
a sex educator on my
Okay, wait, hold on.
ass,
But also, even more
carrying
so,
around sex educator tools
okay,
everywhere.
it's her vagina. But all that to say, I remember Amaya and I hear this and immediately alert, like, we are so angry.
Fuck.
And not at you,
No.
but I think kind of at ourselves.
What
Like,
did I tell you?
I remember
I
you
was
told
terrified,
you were
and I
told
just
me
needed to tell someone.
you told me because we were talking about boys and dating. I think you also had your bruise. You had some sort of bruise on your head, and we were both really
I
skeptical.
had like a bruise on my forearm and a
Yeah, you
bruise
had
on my
bruises
thigh.
on her face, and it wasn't hickeys. It was like physical
it
bruises.
was like yellowed, purple, blue.
And I think
bruises.
Amaya and I were trying to kind of like, just be casual, like, let's find out what's happening with Issa. And suddenly you were like, oh, we had sex, but it was great. And you could tell that we were nervous. And I think you kind of overcompensated, like it was fine. And then it became, did you use protection?
This is when we were in the car, right?
I remember we were in our old room, and then all of a sudden I think we were like, you have to tell mom, not because she needs to know you are having sex, but because you need to be on birth control.
I wanted to-
I
on birth
told you
control
guys
so
separately.
fast,
No,
yeah.
we were doing yoga in our living room or something like
I
that.
think
Something.
We
Nadya
were
with me.
exercising, doing little cardio exercises, and then you told Amaya, and Amaya talked to me about it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, fine, like I'll get birth control. I'll do it. Let's figure it out.
Communication was Issa told Nadya. Nadya is like, Issa needs fucking birth control. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk to Amaya. Amaya freaks out and then freaks out on Issa.
And then flipped
And then I
out on me.
overreacted. I'm really sorry.
Wait, but
I
then,
definitely overreacted.
and then it gets
no,
crazy.
And then, so I remember we were all sitting in the living room, and this was about a week afterwards. And mom comes home from work at night, and I remember Amaya's on one side, Nadia's on one side, and we were kind of whispering under our voices, and I thought we were gonna take care of this as sisters, and I thought might have like gone, I don't know, you were gonna get me birth control, so I was like, okay guys, like mom's coming, and so then we're all sitting there, and then, like Nadia goes,
We're at the
Nadia
dining
leans
table.
back, Nadia leans back.
Issa wanted to get birth control without talking to mom and
Yeah.
without telling mom anything.
Amaya turns to her mom while mom's like, putting her stuff away. Mom's chilling out. Mom's like starting to rewind from her day at work. And like, might I remind you, our mom was so busy at this time.
Yeah.
And so she was just like taking her coat off. And Amaya goes, I had penis vagina sex. So did Issa.
And literally, that's
Mom?
exactly how it happened.
That
Like,
is
nobody
exact
was saying
word
anything.
for word.
Mom was like relaxing, and all of us were
Silence.
And then Maya literally goes, penis and vagina sex. So did Issa. And I remember mom just like paused, sat down, silent, and started crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she
Immediately.
and I think the context of this is mom was also at a point where we had gone through so much. Like, this is right when we had moved back into our apartment. Like,
Less than a year after the court case, less than a year after I was
Yeah.
released from Cartini.
court case, everything. Like, we were all so fragile, and I think mom was feeling like we were just getting back on our feet, and suddenly her 14-year-old, her baby, her like smallest child is like having sex, and I think she just broke down. But also mom has this like Catholic Christian.
Well, I want to say
Side.
that mom came back, and a lot when she we'll talk about it. She left, and then she came back, and a lot of it was about the fact that she felt like she also was angry at herself because she had like asked you so many times if you were having sex,
Yeah.
and you had said no, and you had
And I
promised
said
her no, I'm not, because she said like, do you need birth control, and you had said like no.
I just remember, I've talked about this with mom a lot just because that was a hard day. We've had to process it together.
I mean, you still say that's like one of the most traumatic
That
days
was
of your
like one
life.
of the most
I'm so
traumatic
sorry.
days of my life.
Because I think for context, Amaya says that, mom starts crying, and then maybe for like 30 minutes,
Immediately, so no
Mom-
comment, gets up and leaves.
no comment, mom starts sobbing, and she's so angry. And I remember her impulse was to be like, I think upset at you, which was triggering for you.
It was triggering for me, but also I've talked to mom, and I think mom kind of began to learn what was going on between my boyfriend and I. Mom saw what was going on, and she was really she was such a great mom. Like, through the whole
No,
thing,
she was great.
she was really trying to just make me see it as well. And in the situation that I was, it's really difficult to see
Yeah.
what's going on. And so I think the news
And leave.
of me, yeah, he did take something from me, losing my
Yeah.
virginity that day was just like really heartbreaking, and I totally understand why now, reflecting on
Yeah.
it. And so I also, considering like the situation of our family at the time, and we were all kind of just so trauma bonded by having to report our dad, and just what you guys had gone through. I feel like it kind of like broke a connection that my mom and I had a little bit, just because, like we're all so tight with our mom, and me not being the first person to tell her that I had lost my virginity and that I actually did need help was just, something that has been really difficult to rebuild between us.
I think it also was a big wedge between the relationship with both of you.
Yeah.
And I think something that progressively was worked on too.
It was progressive.
We've had to work on that.
I think a lot of it was just overall the sex in our family has always been an open conversation, in terms of like what Amaya said earlier. I didn't even tell anybody for so long, for like a week, right? Like in some families, like they never talk about it, right? Like most of my friends, they've never talked about it with their family. We talk about everything. So like the fact that
if you date one of us, you date all of us.
You date all of us.
You date all of us.
Okay. Well, I also
Issa's like, I've withholded information.
Because I told my mom about my first kiss, my first slow dance, my first date, and I think that I didn't tell her about this because I knew that it was not right. That it was not consensual. I knew mom would have some sort of reaction because I was having that internal reaction myself.
But you're also like in denial about it even happening.
Yeah, and
right?
so it happened so fast that I was like, did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, what? So I think I just had a slower reaction than like you had to me losing my virginity.
Well,
and
I also knew this kid for so long, and I hated him so much. So it was like that reaction of like, I'm not making excuses because I think I definitely could have gone about it a different way, but I remember being just so angry and frustrated, and like you cannot get someone to leave a relationship at a certain level, right? Like that is their prerogative, and sometimes even asking someone to leave someone can make it even worse. Or dig them even deeper. So I think I remember just being like, what can I control? What can I control? Which I shouldn't have thought of like that.
Yeah. But I think like our relationship as sisters now, that was a really difficult day, and I think it definitely broke some ties between me and the two of you, just because I like confided in you. But then, now reflecting on it, I'm like, thank God, I love the pill. And so I'm just like so thankful at the same time that I have sisters that I could go to and talk to. And even now, I think through that event, it brought us closer, like, 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, or whatever it is. Like, it did open our conversations about sex and about the things that we do intimately with our partners. And so now that we're kind of growing up and being older, we're able to have like deeper conversations.
I'll say, I think that kind of tying it back to, what you asked earlier, Issa, around how it was different hooking up with women. I remember the first time I like had sex with a woman, it was one of the first times I felt like I really understood what consent was, because in all my experiences with a cis dude, it was always a very clear power dynamic where I felt like they were initiating, and they were also physically bigger than me, like taller than me, stronger than me physically. So one, I either didn't have that physical control, or two, like they were the ones initiating to ask, who should have asked for permission, right? Not a lot of them did, but like they should have. But when my first experience hooking up with a woman, like privately, intimately, I was the bigger one. Like I was the one who was taller and like stronger, and honestly more masculine too.
Is that your type?
I like don't really have a type at all, actually, in that situation. Like especially with non-cis dudes. Like I think with cis guys, I am kind of like, I want them to be taller, but I don't otherwise. But I remember I was the taller one, and I was really nervous, but I had to ask permission first. Like I felt like that was my duty. And I remember the first time, hooking up and being like, is this okay? Can I do this? And it just felt so much more liberating. And I was nervous, but then after I asked for permission and they were like, yes, or like, let's try this. And I felt like so out of it.
It sounds like that was one of the very rare and probably one of the first experiences sexually where you were in control.
Yeah, I think it was where I was in control, but it was also like I was just physically bigger. Like it was just different. Like I was physically the more dominant one, and it's such a physical, intimate thing. But I remember after that experience being like, wow, it's so easy to ask for permission. And it's like a half a second thing. Why doesn't everybody do that? And I actually think it changed my perspective on going back into hookup culture. And, you know, you guys know I'm not a casual sex person, but I think it did change my perspective, because then when I was hooking up with people who were cis men, when they didn't ask for permission or they weren't as respectful, it was an immediate, like, it is so easy to ask for permission. Like, how do you have the audacity not to, right? And I actually did feel like that was a really, really big eye-opener for me, and something that, like, I think about a lot today.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, it's just like, I think through each of our stories, it's definitely been, each of us so clearly prove that virginity is a social construct, right? Like, even this concept of does it penetrate or not, it's like, what penetrates? A finger? You know, like, yeah. I think that there's so much to unpack there. A tampon? Well, and one of the most asked questions I get is, do you lose your virginity if you use a tampon, right? Yeah. Which is, the answer is no, virginity is a social construct. But yeah, I think we can talk about this forever, but maybe I would love to wrap up just with, like, let's just say a little message to all the young, specifically women survivors out there who maybe haven't had a sexual experience, right? Like, what would your word of advice be? What do you wish, like, someone would have told you?
What I've been thinking throughout this entire podcast that I hope is, you know, PSA, is you can get birth control from your doctor, from Planned Parenthood, you know, like, without any insurance. You can figure out a way, work with Planned Parenthood, and you can talk to your primary care physician, even your pediatrician, and talk about birth control options, with it being, and your parents don't have to know. And I think that should be public information.
And we need to protect that right, too.
We need to protect that right. But if you are thinking right now, holy fuck, I need birth control and I don't want to be in a mess that Issa was in, like, you can go get it.
And DM Amaya if you have questions.
You can DM me if you have questions.
Issa, what about you?
I would say that your body is yours. Like, yes, we have all been in situations where it's difficult to protect ourselves, but in terms of my experience and my specifically with a partner that I once trusted and loved, or thought I loved, you do not get to let someone convince you to let them literally enter you. Like, your body is precious. Don't let anybody tell you that it's otherwise, or don't let anybody claim it for themselves. You know, if you can have that control.
If you have that control.
If you're in that situation, but just know that you have an army behind you of women who will stand by you. You are not alone if you are in a relationship where you're feeling stuck, or if you're in a relationship where you're feeling like you have to give something up. So yeah, DM me if you need a little pep talk.
You are not alone. There are hotlines, there are youth lines, and no matter what happens, your body will always be precious.
I think the thing that I would say is it's also just doing your own pleasure research on, like, what you like, and that, like, sex is for you and not something you owe to anybody else, even if that's another partner, but even to society. Like what Amaya was saying around feeling pressured to have those experiences. I think everybody has a different experience. I also think that for the first 20 years of my life, I thought of sex as performative. It was like, you do sex to be sexy. You do sex for them to like you, for them to not leave, you know? And a lot of that was rooted in my trauma, but also I think what I learned from media and porn, like, all of that's so performative and so fake. And so I think that for me, like, I'm still doing a lot of my own thinking about what I like, and even kinks, like I've never let myself explore any sort of kinks, and I still don't know, like, what my kinks are or anything like that. Or, like, even when I'm watching television and I, like, for example, I've been watching Succession and I hear public discourse on who the hot person is, I always feel like I'm attracted to the person nobody else is attracted to, and I always hide that. And I feel like that's something I'm working through now, is even, like, really exploring what I like and why, and, like, not feeling pressured to like things just because I feel like I should.
And you do not need a man to orgasm. Like
Yeah.
explore
That is
that
so huge.
on yourself.
Yeah,
like
that is so
explore
huge.
yourself and just like take your time and just you don't need him.
And if you want a little pep talk on self-pleasure, listen to our self-pleasure episode that I did with Amaya, where she taught me all about her masturbation techniques. So that's also, by the way, one of the most listened to episodes of
That's
Tigress so far.
hilarious.
Anyways, we've gone over time, but again, this is something I feel like we're always doing a lot of unpacking about. I feel like, Issa, you should really text your crush from being 5 years old. I know it's not a thing anymore, but like that's so special, and I'm excited for this to come out because I feel like you have to send him the link. It's just so sweet. Anyways, with that, thank you so much for listening. Again, sending my love to all of you. I think we just dedicate this to all our fellow like
Survivors.
trauma CSA survivors out there, because like we all deserve pleasure, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of healing to get there after going through things like that. And yeah, you're not alone, and like you'll get there, and we wish you the most like incredible intimate experiences if and so you choose to do that and want that. So yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday. Again, thank you so much for tuning in wherever podcasts are streamed. Thank you to our DCP team for giving us the platform to rant about, you know, our sexual experiences, and we will see you next Wednesday.